Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the first episode of Let's Talk About It, in association with Freeman Solicitors, based in the City of London. I'm Aklima Bibi. I'm a human rights lawyer. I'm also your host for this show. Over the coming weeks, I'll be talking about the many issues that affect us all. For example, the domestic violence and also the immigration issues, as well as social issues that no one wants to talk about in the community. Anyway, today we will be talking about Freeman Solicitors, the sponsors for this show. I have in the studio my guest, Abdul Hafizi, who also works for Freeman Solicitors. Let's go over to Abdul. Abdul, thank you for coming to the show.
Hi Hakima, thank you for having me. Thank you for giving Freeman Harris the opportunity to tell your viewers something about our firm. We're a firm that is owned by Ian Freeman, and it's based in Sutton Street, just off Commercial Street in E1. We do say that we are literally stone's throw away from the city. So we are a specialist firm that will visit many areas of civil disputes in England and Wales. We're known for doing a lot of personal injury work, but that is also based on civil litigation. So many people who have accidents on the road, many people who have accidents at work, many people who have accidents on public highways, they often want to make a claim, and those claims are then pursued on their behalf. Many of those people that they want to pursue are insured, so it becomes what we call insurance litigation. So we deal with many areas of personal injury base. We also deal with what we call insurance litigation, which is again a dispute that people would have against insurance companies. So for example, if you have had a fire, or if you had a water damage, in all likelihood you would be insured. And if your insurance company for whatever reason decides not to pay you on the damage caused, you would then need to hire a lawyer, and that's an area where we would come in. We also act for many local landlord and tenants. So landlords who are subletting their premises often have disputes with their tenants, either because...
Can I just ask, what exactly is civil litigation? What does it cover?
Okay, civil litigation is a term used by lawyers, but it's basically anything where there is a dispute. Okay. So you can have a dispute either with your neighbor, for example. When you have a personal injury claim, you technically have a dispute with the person who's knocked you down or who's hit you from behind. So that's a dispute. It's resolving a dispute through the civil courts.
Okay.
We come in obviously at the onset. So what we would say is we advise, so we give them the initial advice about what course of action they can take. We can assist them in presenting their claim or contesting with the insurance company, and we represent them. So if in fact, despite our involvement, they're unable to resolve the issues with the other side, then we would pursue the matter in civil court. So we are civil litigators, which all disputes in this country based on civil litigation is resolved in the county court or the high court.
Okay. Is that covers things like, let's say, the family side of things,
yes,
family law, and also the immigration law? Does civil litigation
it does, because
cover those?
Family law is based on contract of marriage.
Okay.
So in effect, it is a contractual relationship between husband and wife, but it's sanctioned by the state.
Okay.
So, so if there are then disputes within the marriage, so for example, you can only dissolve the marriage if you come within certain grounds, and you would then have to seek our advice. So you can't simply dissolve, you have to petition the courts, and that is a dispute we would resolve. Often following a divorce, there is issues about property, there's disputes about children. That is a dispute. So resolving that dispute is part of civil litigation. Okay.
So as I understand it, Freeman Harris cover immigration law as well as family law. I also understand they do wills and probate. So
yes.
How does that come into...
Well, immigration would also be categorized by us as litigation, because when you have an issue, it's often with the Home Office.
Okay.
So what you would be disputing is they're either not allowing you as a spouse to bring it from abroad, or you have, if you're an employee, you have an issue with an employee who you want to get a work permit for him to come and work here. Those are disputes you have with the Home Office, and there again, if you're unable to come to an agreement with the Home Office, you'd have to take it to local courts.
Okay.
In the same way with probate. Okay. Probate, we do both sides of probate. So
is that wills and probate?
Wills and probate. Wills and probate. So will writing is something we do. So we have a department that deals with drafting of wills, or if people who have a will but want to amend it,
Okay.
It's called a codicil, so we would also then advise and assist and prepare for them the will.
Okay.
There are many cases, again, where there is a will, but after the person has passed away, there's a dispute about the will.
A lot of the times, just briefly tell me about the wills and probate, because a lot of the times one would probably understand, okay, like let's say, for example, my father, when he passes away, there doesn't need to be a will. His estate will automatically pass on to his children. So why does one need to do a will?
Well, no, it's true. We have what we call the Intestacy Rules.
Okay.
So if a person has not made a will and passes away, there are rules made by our Act of Parliament, which actually goes down the family tree as to who should have. First of all, who can apply to administer the estate, and then who should have what. The reason why you have a will is because you're then able to decide for yourself before you pass away exactly what you want to do with your estate. So you may have a particular cherished item, you may want to leave it to your grandchild or a specific grandchild. You may want to leave a specific amount of money for a charity, right? You may want to leave out a particular child. The benefit of a will is that you are entitled to make decision as to what should happen to your estate. First, most of all, you can also appoint who you want to administer the estate. They are called the executors. So if you write a will, you can nominate your brothers or sisters or your children or your best friend, or in many cases, your solicitors to become the executors of the estate, to administer. So the difference between having a will and not having a will is that there is unlikely to be any dispute as to who should have what if you've already written down.
Right, okay. Sorry, I didn't quite understand the wills and probate. So what exactly is the probate then? So
probate is once person has passed away. There are many times when, for example, banks and building societies, if the only asset left by the deceased is bank accounts, most banks will not ask you to obtain probate. Probate is getting the authority from the estate, from the courts, to administer the estate. We call it grant of probate. So if you have a will, normally you go through the process of reading a will. So, if an executor has been appointed, as I said to you earlier on, often it's a solicitor's firm, then it would invite all the people who are beneficial to the will to read the will. And then they will then apply for grant of probate. So they will then, once you have the probate, you are then able to get all the assets together and administer the assets as the deceased had willed in the will. If there is no will, then the intestacy rule will apply. So, for example, if a person has passed away and has left a wife and children, the first rule under the intestacy rule is that the wife can apply for probate. It's called letters of administration. And then it's also the wife who would have a significant portion of the estate. If only some that is left after that, the children will acquire.
Okay, I understand. Thank you very much. So do I sort of understand correctly that Freeman cover a number of areas of law? Does it cover sort of, you've just explained about the wills and probate. It also covers immigration, family law, and obviously personal injuries as well. What else does it cover?
We also deal with partnership disputes. Again, as I said to you earlier on, a contract of marriage, a partnership. In the same way, people often have partnership in running a business. Often when people are not incorporated into a limited company, they may be a sole trader or they may be in partnership with a friend, and then there's a dispute. If there's a partnership, so if there are disputes as to who owns what and how much of the partnership assets should be allowed to each one, if there is a dispute, we can advise them at the onset. We can then assist them in representing one of the parties. If there are no resolution of that by way of a compromise, if they need to go before the county court or the high court, we would assist in, advise and represent them. We're a firm of solicitors, so just for your viewers, if they're not aware, in this country we have what we call a dual profession. So we have solicitors who are mostly based in the high street and on shopping centres, and then we have barristers. Barristers are special advocates, and there are now situations where you can go direct to a barrister, but traditionally and conventionally, most people, when they need a lawyer, they go to a lawyer, a separate local firm of solicitors.
What's the difference then? Well, if they can go to a barrister. Barrister's more of an expert. Would somebody feel like, okay, I think I'm going to go to a barrister rather than a lawyer or a solicitor's firm? What is the difference? I'm trying to think, whether...
Well, the difference is that the barristers are out-and-out advocates.
Okay.
So traditionally, barristers are not set up to be able to deal and run with a caseload.
Okay.
We as law firm and solicitors, we have a caseload of our own, and we have regular letters coming in. We have to deal with matters on a daily basis. Advocates, barristers are out in courts. Okay. And they are not set up. They work in chambers.
So they work more as advocates in courts and tribunals, and solicitors do all the work, basically.
Solicitors are more or less like what we...
Solicitors and lawyers, obviously.
It's the same. It's the same.
Yeah.
The term lawyer can be described as a solicitor and or a barrister.
Okay.
But what has been happening to date has been that solicitors would prepare the case, the file.
Okay.
So if there's a hearing before a court, then they would brief the barrister, and it would be the barrister who would stand up and do the advocacy for the client.
Okay. So solicitors and lawyers do most of the work, to be honest with you. Is that how I understand it? More the casework and putting everything together, more...
Well, solicitor is the one you would have seen at the onset,
okay.
and he would have prepared your case completely. There are times when solicitors would also do advocacy.
Okay.
But let's say majority of the cases, we have a system in place where you have a solicitor and a barrister. The other reason to have the dual system is that often a solicitor will take on a case where he may not be a specialist. And the advantage of a dual system is that then you can then hire a barrister who does nothing but that particular area of law.
Right, okay. Now coming back to Freeman Harris Solicitors, okay. Why would people want to choose Freeman Harris Solicitors?
Okay, well, Freeman Harris...
There's so many law firms in London, thousands. Why would they be, why would one want to choose Freeman Harris Solicitors?
No, I agree. There are lots of competent solicitors. In fact, London has the highest proportion of solicitors in England.
Okay.
The reason why I would say you would appoint Freeman Harris is because in the last 10, 20 years, a system has grown up where solicitors often work not necessarily meeting a client. What we offer is the ability to come and see us. We would give 10, 20 minutes of our time with no obligation to instruct us if you don't want to. We would point you in the right direction as to what your problems are.
Do I understand, a free service, free consultation for 10, 15 minutes?
It is, yes.
Okay.
It is, yes.
Okay, that's
so
different.
we're able to give you 10, 20 minutes of free time. Okay. We also are a firm staffed by people from all sorts of different backgrounds. Okay. So we have people who would speak a lot of East European languages. We have people who speak most of the South Asian languages. We have people who speak Russian, for example. So we're able to cater for the cosmopolitan communities in the London area. We're also very local in terms of transportation. Okay. Because where we are based, you can basically commute from any part of London. Okay. We're very close to Dockland Railway and also Aldgate East Tube Station, walking distance from here.
Sorry to stop you, Abdul. I understand that lawyers or solicitors here at Freeman Harris Solicitors speak at least 2 languages or more. Is that... Am I right?
Yes.
Okay.
We're,
that's brilliant.
So we're the reason why you would use us is because, as I say, we would see you in person. We would basically do what we call a cost-benefit analysis. Is it worth your while to sue us? Is the benefit you're likely to get at the end of the day, after having paid our fees, still worth your while? Not many solicitors perhaps do the cost-benefit analysis. We're local. We're also a specialist in our areas of law, and we speak a number of languages.
Okay. What about the actual costings? I mean, a lot of the times, legal aid, with the legal aid cut, benefit of getting legal aid by a client or potential client is next to nothing or very limited. How does Freeman Harris's cost or fees work? How do you charge your clients?
Okay, well, we are not, legal aid is only done by law firms that are franchised by the legal agency. So we do not have any kind of franchise. So we do not undertake any legal aid work. Okay. So if you were to instruct us, you instruct on a private basis. i.e. you would pay for our time.
We'll come back to this topic later on. We're going to take a short break now. See you soon. Welcome back to Let's Talk About It in association with Freeman Harris Solicitors. Anyway, before the break, we were talking about the fee structure of Freeman Harris. So let's go back to Abdul to discuss this in more details. Abdul, again, could you give us a bit more information about the fee structure? Obviously, the legal aid cut is no longer available. Freeman Harris is privately funded. How does the fee structure work? I mean, sometimes, you know, you're not always getting rich clients. How would somebody how do you decide, or Freeman Harris decide, the fee structure?
Okay, well, all lawyers in civil litigation, you need to hire on the basis that you will pay for their time.
Okay.
Okay, so lawyers are still charged on an hourly basis. So if you come into our office, we would explain to you 3 ways in which you can hire a law firm.
Okay.
The most favorite method, which is probably well known with your viewers, is no win, no fee. In around 2000,
But that's not with all the cases, are they? Is it just the personal injuries?
No. Let me explain.
Okay.
So you can, any lawyer anywhere in England and Wales, you can hire in a number of ways. Traditionally, until 2000, it was that you would pay for their time, come what may. So it did not matter what happened to your claim, what the outcome was. You would pay as you would pay your builder. You would pay for their time. In 2000, the Labour government got rid of what we used to call legal aid for personal injury and many areas of civil litigation, and introduced an American system, what is known as no win, no fee. In America, it's known as a contingency basis. In this country, the legal term is called conditional fee agreement, which is what a lot of people know it as no win, no fee. So the conditional
Sorry,
is...
just to I understand it, no win, it's a simple term. If they don't win the case, they don't have to pay that.
That's the condition.
Okay.
So what you do is you have a written agreement with your solicitor that if your claim or if your dispute is successfully resolved, i.e. you negotiate a successful settlement, or if you go to court and you succeed in your case, then you would pay your lawyers for their time. Okay. Now, in this country, you're able to have that system because there is a legal principle that if you win a case, either in negotiation or you succeed at the court of law, then you would get your lawyer's fees from the losing party.
Okay.
So the no win, no fee isn't that the lawyer is doing the work for you for completely free. It's just that if the claim is successful, if your litigation is successful, then you pay your lawyer. Because you have succeeded, your opponent will pay your lawyer's fees.
Okay.
So that is called no win, no fee. Many people often think that no win, no fee means that the lawyer is completely free. He is not. You simply agreeing that all the time that the lawyer spends on your file is charged on the basis that if your claim is successful, he will send you a bill, but you will be able to recover that bill from your opponent because you have succeeded. Okay. If you fail in your claim, or if you abandon your claim on advice from your back solicitors, then you don't have to pay for the time that the solicitor has spent on your file.
Does it mean the solicitors don't get paid for all the time that they spend on that file? Yes,
that is precisely what it is. It's what Labour government wanted. They thought that by introducing this no win, no fee, you don't have to think about paying your solicitor in the first place. Okay. You're getting your solicitor's time on the basis that you only pay him if you are successful. Now, if you are successful, as I said, you would recover from the other side because you have successfully negotiated your claim, or the court of law has given a judgment in your favor. So that is no win, no fee. But within so what we would advise our client is, if we think that there was a merit in what they want to pursue, then we will consider taking the case on a no-win-no-fee basis.
Okay.
So you can hire us on a no-win-no-fee basis, but usually what we ask the client to do in appropriate cases is that you're getting no-win-no-fee of our time. But if we then have to spend money in investigating the claim, then we would ask the client to pay what we call expenses or disbursement. So, for example, if it was a personal injury claim and it was a road traffic accident and the police were called, an ambulance were called, we would need to get a police report. Now, the police charge about £184 to get a copy of the report. Now, we would ask the client to pay for that, though in many, many cases, Freeman Harris would undertake to lend you that money and get the report. If an ambulance was called, again, the London Ambulance Services will charge £10 to get a copy of the record. If you were injured and you were taken to hospital and you also then consulted your general practitioner on a regular basis, in order to value your claim for your injury, we would need to get an expert opinion from a medical expert. So we would get medical records from the hospital. We would get medical records from your GP. Again, they do not give it to you free. They will charge us £50 to £100. Again, we would pay that, but again, we're lending the money to the client because if the claim is successful, that is recovered from the other side.
Is that, okay, so what we talked about, is it personal injuries like the road traffic accident? Does it also cover medical negligence and other areas of personal injuries?
No, you can hire a lawyer on a no-win, no-fee basis for any kind of civil litigation in this country.
Is that same with landlord and tenants?
Yes, if you have a lawyer brave enough to take it on a no-win, no-fee basis, you can do it. So just go back to, so that's no-win, no-fee, okay? That's one area which is most people, if they've had an injury and have made a claim, that's the basis on which they would have hired a lawyer. If you come to us, we would also explore the traditional method, that if we did not think that the case is too risky and not prepared to take the risk.
I was going to come back to you. Do you not feel that it's quite a risky thing to do? I mean, how do you assess that somebody's case is likely to be successful? Because at the end of the day, if you lose a case, then obviously I mean, your time is going to be wasted. No one's going to pay for that. How do you assess?
Well,
how do you get?
Well, that's where the experience comes in. Okay, we have a way of. That's why we see people in person. Okay. You know, so we would assess for ourselves the merit of the case, what facts they tell us. Based on those facts, what we think is the chances of persuading the court, if need be, that they have a claim. So we would explore with them that. The other reason or enticing lawyers to take on cases on a no-win-no-fee basis, back in 2000, the government then introduced that if a lawyer is going to take on cases and riskier cases, and there may be out of 10, 4 or 5 cases which you might lose or you might have to abandon and is not getting paid, they introduced this concept that in addition to what you recover from the other side on a time-exposed basis, you also recover what is called a success fee, which is until April 2013, that was also an element of claim you can recover from the losing party.
Right.
Okay. So the idea was that you would have enough of success and recover a success fee for the lawyers to take risk on riskier cases. So we take a risk. When you come and see us, we review the facts you tell us, and we decide whether or not we are prepared to do this on a no-win, no-fee basis. If we are not prepared to do it on no-win, no-fee basis, then you can hire us on a usual traditional method, which is we will charge you for our time. Now, if it's that sort of situation,
is that something? Sorry to stop you. Is that something you sort of like? Is that the reason that you see potential clients in advance and you give them the correct information? For example, transparent and honest advice and assistance there and then. Do they know what the risks are involved, the success or some sort of merit of their case?
Very much so, and that's the reason. And I think one of the benefits of if you
what I'm trying to sort of say is, 15, 20 minutes of your time free advice. Will a client or potential client be satisfied with the information you give them, that they can make a decision? This is what I'm trying to understand.
Well, I hope so. I hope so, right? I saw a client yesterday, for example, who had come through us direct. I saw him probably for 15 to 30 minutes. It's a landlord who been prosecuted by local authority because they have breached some aspect of the housing law.
Okay.
If you let a property, then you have certain obligation about fire safety, security, and if you are in breach of those, you would be prosecuted. And I've advised them about the prospect of them pursuing and defending those allegations,
Okay.
what it would cost them, what we would do, if we need to hire a barrister, what the charges of barristers might be. So they've gone away. I've had an email from them saying it was a very useful and fruitful meeting. So
Okay.
we would advise them to go away and think about what we're doing. So if we do not think it's a case where we would take it on a no-fee basis, we would then say to them, this is how we would charge. We would charge on an hourly basis.
Okay.
Solicitors firms have a different grade of fee earners.
Okay.
It's categorized as category A, B, C, D, and E.
Okay.
So the more senior a lawyer,
Yeah.
the higher the grade. And the grade, the hourly rate depends upon the grade.
And these things are already, they are highlighted once you take on a case on a client care letter?
Yes.
Yeah, so everything's transparent.
So if that client who came to see me yesterday, I said to them, go and think about it. If you want to hire our services, I will send them a lengthy letter, which is a contract between us and them as to how we will charge, what we charge for, and how much money we would want up front to cover our time and cost.
Okay.
So if it was, what we lawyers call standard basis. So that's a standard basis of hiring, which used to be the case until 2000 of hiring all lawyers. So you would pay whatever happens to that client, whether or not he successfully defends a case or is penalized by the magistrate's court, they would pay for our time that's agreed. The third method that we have of hiring a law firm is on a fixed fee basis.
Okay,
There are certain cases, for example, writing a will.
Okay.
We would give a fixed fee. So if it's a brand new will, they've never had a will before, we would see them and we would give them an idea.
Why would you give them a fixed fee on that, wills and probate? How do you sort of assess? Is it the value of the estate? How does that work?
Of course, yeah. I mean, the more, like anything else,
Yeah.
you can, if a builder comes in and gives you a quote,
Yeah.
depending upon what you want, his quote will reflect that. So if it's a simple will, if it's just a single person, then they don't have any assets. They don't, particularly if they don't have any property.
Okay.
But they want to have a will. It's simple. If there is a will with married people and children under the age of 18, that would be complicated. So if there's a large estate, you're talking about hundreds of £1,000s or several properties, and they want to create a trust.
Okay.
Then, so the fixed fees that we would quote reflects upon the information that they give us.
Okay.
And that fixed fee can be applied to many areas.
So
of
you've
law.
got different areas. So you've got no win, no fee. You've got one category of legal services you provide, but you've also got fixed fee basis, which I presume will cover wills and probate, immigration cases, and also family matters as well in most cases as well.
Yes, of course. If you, for example, if sadly you wanted to divorce and wanted to dissolve your marriage. You would have to petition. And if you were the person who wanted to petition for divorce, then we'd give you a fixed fee for drafting and getting the stage, what we call dissolution of your marriage, an order of the court that said the marriage is dissolved.
And the fixed fee, I mean, obviously those analyses are made on the complication or how complex the case is. Is there's going to be any disputes from the other side? Is it decided on that? Is it financial settlement? Is it based on that? Do you analyse those as well?
No. Well, say if I give you an example of divorce, okay? Getting a divorce is a first step, and we give a fixed fee of getting degree absolute. That's when you get a final order that marriage is dissolved. If there are children and if there are property involved in it, then the court will deal with the children at the same time. If there are disputes about custody, of the children, then that is a separate matter from the dissolution of marriage.
Okay. So those are kind of fixed fee basis.
We would charge separately for that. If it was just one matrimonial home and there was dispute about who should have what, both in the property that is in the house and the property itself, again, that is dealt by the court as a separate matter. Okay,
so we've got no fee basis. We've got categories where fixed fee basis as well, but everything's sort of like assessed before you take on a case from a client, and everything's sort of transparent and in written form. So a client or a potential client will know exactly how their cases are going to be proceeded. Do I understand it correctly?
Yes,
Right from the
absolutely. I
beginning,
mean,
yeah.
so apart from our costs, I mean, one of the advantages of coming to a firm like us is we would also give them comprehensive advice at the onset about insurance.
Okay.
So it used to be until April 13 that if you bought an insurance policy when you had to sue someone, it doesn't matter what kind of litigation it was.
Sorry to stop you, Abdul. We are going to go for another short break. It won't be long. See you soon. Welcome back. Let's continue with our talk. We have at the show in our show Abdul. Abdul, before we went to a break, we were talking about the categories of the legal services Freeman Harris provide, and you've got one side which covers with no-win, no fees, which is like personal injuries claim, things like road traffic accident, medical negligence, and so on. But then you've got the fixed fee. For categories such as the family, the wills and probate, and perhaps immigration as well. Can we talk about the fixed fee? I mean, what I want to know is, before during the show, we were talking about why would somebody want to appoint Freeman Harris? Well, why would somebody want to come to Freeman Harris? And one of the things you talked about is, you give us personal service, the one-to-one service, and you give them exactly the information, transparent and honest. They know exactly what they're looking at. They know exactly what the fees and the consequences as well. Is that correct?
It is, and as I said, we've covered the three ways in which you can hire a solicitor.
Okay.
Either on a no-win, no-fee basis, or on a standard basis, or where appropriate, on a fixed fee.
Okay. Also, I understand the lawyers at Freeman Harris, almost everyone speaks two languages or more. So obviously bilingual, is that correct?
Yes, or to be honest with you, even if we do not have someone that would cover the language of the potential client, we can always have access to people who speak the language anyway. Okay. So language is not an issue. I think what we try to sell is the idea that if you came to a firm like us, and if it's a civil dispute, or if it's simply drawing of a particular document like a will, we would give you a clear idea as to what it will cost you, okay, how long it would take. We are required by our regulatory body, the Solicitors Regulatory Authority anyway, to give all that information to the client at the onset in terms of how the case is funded, okay, how much it would cost. If, for example, we give you a fixed fee for a particular task, then we are required to stick to that, even though we may spend a lot more time than we had originally anticipated. Okay. So fixed fees would be in the same way. If you do have an issue, one of the things that all solicitors firms sell as compared to anybody that might be competing with solicitors is that we are regulated. We are heavily regulated as a law firm. So there is also the ombudsman. So if you have any issues about any law firm, your first port of call would be to the ombudsman if you're not able to sort out the disputes that you have with the law firm. Okay. If you're not happy with that, you can even refer the matter to their regulatory authority. Okay. So you asked me earlier on as to what areas we cover. So apart from the way that we charge, we do cover, so when we talk about insurance-based litigation, as a firm, and I do for myself actually, I have done in the past, we do cover what is called clinical negligence. Okay. So if you have issue with your general practitioner or a hospital, we would investigate. And again, we would do that for you in 80% of the cases on a no-win, no-fee basis. Right, okay. And it would be the same in pursuing any professions. Okay. I have been known to also pursue fellow solicitors. So it's called solicitors negligence. So accountants negligence, solicitors negligence, estate agents negligence. That is all what we call insurance-based litigation. So we would consider acting for an inquirer on any of those areas predominantly on a no-win-no-fee basis, except of course they may have to pay, as I said to you earlier on, some of the additional expenses that you incur. The other thing that we ensure is that, as I said to you earlier on, that if you take someone to court in this country and you lose a case, you have to pay their lawyers' fees if you lose the case. Just as if you win your case, you're able to recover your lawyers'
from the losing
cost from
party.
the society.
Okay.
We would also make sure that either you have a policy already, it's called before the event policies. Many motorists, for example, are within their RTA policies covered for an insurance policy, so that if they are injured, they can make a claim with the benefit of that insurance policy. Now, if they are not covered by before the event insurance policy, we have access to brokers, and we would purchase an insurance policy for them in case they get to a situation. In personal injury cases now, you no longer have to pay the other side's cost if you abandon or lose the case, as long as it is not considered to be a dishonest claim.
Right, okay. So you would want your client to be totally honest with you with the facts.
Well, when we decide on the prospect of taking on a case, that's when we assess whether or not there's any of that. But there are situations, even within personal injury, where you may be at risk for having to pay the other side's cost. So we would take out an insurance policy. The policy that we normally take out are with brokers. You don't have to pay the premium at the onset, but you would pay if the claim is successful at the end. Now, since April 13, before April 13, you were able to recover this premium for your losing party. That's no longer the case. So you would have to pay that insurance premium from what you recover in terms of compensation. The other thing I need to say to you is that since April 13, on no-win-no-fee cases, the way no-win-no-fee cases work is that if you are successful, either because your solicitors have successfully settled your claim or you won it before a court, you no longer get that success fee we charge from the other side, but we would take that from the damages you recover. So we would take up to 25% of your damages as part of the success fee, because we took the risk that we may not get paid at all if you lose or abandon the claim on our advice.
One other thing I wanted to understand with the personal injuries claim is, how do you value a claim? Is it you get outside external experts? For example, there's a minor road traffic accident, but there could be a major one. How do you assess? How do you sort of come up with the value? I've always wondered how that works.
Okay, well, personal injury is a law of negligence. And so there are a number of steps you have to overcome if you're making a claim. It's in simple terms, it's called fault-based. So you have to first of all establish that the person who caused you the injury, whether it's because you slipped over a grape in a supermarket, or somebody's hit you from behind in a motor car, or you're a pedestrian and somebody's hit you as you're walking along the pavement. If we think that there's enough evidence to establish that the driver or the supermarket is negligent, then we would give you an idea as to what your claim would be worth. This is why when I said to you earlier on that in order to value the claim, we would see whether you went to hospital. We would see whether we've seen your general practitioner on a regular basis. So the courts have evolved a principle by which we can value your claim. Because if you have broken a limb, no litigation can bring you back your limb. The way the civil courts in England have done is to compensate you in monetary terms what your claim is worth. Now, there are guidelines. There are guidelines set as a matter of principle, which gives you an idea as to what each type of injury is worth, whether it's a physical orthopedic injury, whether it's a neurological injury, whether it's psychological injury. All those injuries are categorized and a valuation is given. So, for example, if you come to me and you said that I was hit from behind and I had a really very bad whiplash claim, and it was 6 months ago and I'm still going to my GP and he's referred me to a hospital, then if you have 6 months or more of symptoms from that neck injury, then, for example, the guideline says that up to 12 months of symptoms from neck injuries are worth about £3,600. So we would use that guide to work out if you have broken an ankle, if you have broken your upper limbs. Again, there are categories within which you would come. If you have suffered, for example, I recently settled a claim, a very sad case where a little boy was riding a bicycle and he was carrying his brother on a bicycle locally in Ilford, and he was hit by a car, and the boy who was being carried passed away at the scene of the accident, and the boy who was riding the bicycle was seriously injured. And so because they were living locally, the children and the family came along, the siblings came along, and they witnessed. So we also made a claim for the siblings for what we call psychological injuries, because they were suffering from dreams, they were having flashbacks. Those are symptoms of psychological injuries. And again, there are guidelines which can value your injuries. We also use the guidelines, and also there are cases where a court has decided, because parties have not been able to agree the amount of compensation. It's gone before a judge, and judge has valued the claim, and we use those authorities to give you an idea as to what your injury would be worth.
Right, okay. Well, thank you very much. Other thing I wanted to talk about, I know Freeman Harris cover all the legal services within the UK. Do they cover anything outside the UK?
Yes, I understand that you do, and that you cover if it's immigration or matrimonial related.
I cover most of the things I cover is immigration, obviously, and there's some elements of family law, which I'll come back to you later. But I wanted to see the personal injury side. I wanted to get more clarification. Let's say somebody came from abroad on a tourist visa, and they had an accident here. And obviously 6 months later, or their visa expired and they have to go back. Do you cover that side?
Yes. I mean, we can cover not only people who visit in the UK, but we can also cover people who have gone abroad and have had an accident.
Okay.
So obviously, if you're a tourist from abroad and have had an accident, you can only make a claim in England. If the accident was in England and Wales, then
it doesn't matter. So it doesn't matter whether you're British citizen or settled here. Even if you're a tourist and had an accident here in the UK, you can make a claim?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, fine.
So in the same way, if you've gone abroad and not only just personal injury, but if you had issues with your hoteliers, if you have issues with the people who sold you the holiday package, that is civil litigation. So we would, if we thought there was merit in your case and it was worth sufficient for us to be involved, we would consider acting for you on a no-fee basis.
Right, okay. Back to myself. Obviously, I covered aspects of family law, both here in the UK and in Bangladesh as well. It's difficult, but at the end of the day, it's doable. And at Freeman Harris, I believe Freeman Harris were the only one who actually covered sort of like family law elements, both here and abroad as well. I've dealt with financial settlement in India as well. And I think we are specializing in going into land disputes in Bangladesh as well, which is totally new. And I think, Freeman Harris are the only solicitors firm who are specializing in dealing with land disputes, both here and in Bangladesh. And I think, we've got in the future, we probably expand to other parts of the world as well. So based on your information today, and from obviously my experience as well, I think we can say, Freeman Harris solicitors are transparent and honest and have the client's best interest at heart. Wouldn't you agree?
Well, absolutely. Not just to cover what you said in terms of any dispute people may have abroad. I mean, if our viewers are from the subcontinent, I am from, as I said earlier on, of Indian heritage. We also have reached a situation in communities where people have been here for a long time and their parents are passing away back in India or have passed away. And there are land disputes or land properties have appreciated substantially and there are disputes between siblings here. Yeah. You can appoint Freeman Harris on any dispute anywhere. What would happen is, I mean, I've dealt with cases where people have been injured in America. Okay. What we have to do, just as if somebody is injured here, they would have to appoint an English lawyer. What we would do if they want to retain our services, we would have to appoint an American counsel. So if an accident was in any of the states in America, we would appoint an appropriate, suitably qualified attorney within that state. If it was in India, if it was in Bangladesh, if it was in Pakistan, and there were disputes that they live here but they have a dispute abroad, they would, because we are specialists only in English law, so they can retain our services, but we would then appoint an agent in
Well,
abroad.
lawyers in those countries.
They will be agent. They will
under
be our
our
agent.
supervision.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it would be, again, it would be, transparency would be that you're paying for two firms of lawyers.
Yeah.
So you got us, plus you got, but the benefit that you would have is that you are, you got a law firm in England that is overseeing the work being done either by the American attorneys or any of the lawyers on the
Bangladeshi attorneys
subcontinent.
or the Indians. Yeah. Okay. So yes, so I believe Freeman Harris have the best of all lawyers as well as the services. We would agree. Would you agree?
Well, it's a firm that's been going, I think Ian set it up nearly 12, 15 years ago. It's a firm, in this particular location, it's in the last few years, but before that they were based in South London. So we have a very good website. Okay. We also do, and it's not something that is mentioned within civil litigation, but we also have a department that deals with registering trademarks. Okay. So if any of your viewers are businesses recently set up or have set up and have got a unique name, I was, for example, approached by a restaurant owner in Hackney. He's a Gujarati heritage guy who runs a restaurant called Saffron, and he wants to register a trademark. Okay. Now, if Saffron is something that's unique and nobody else has it, and it's possible, we can investigate to see it's something that's permissible. Okay. And so people, if they are running businesses and they are, for marketing purposes, they have a particular name, they want to make sure that nobody else would trade under that name, it's always important to make sure that you register as a trademark, and so that nobody else can trade under that name. So we do have it's something we haven't covered before, but we know we do have a completely separate department that will deal with registering trademark. Or I had an issue recently where a business was sold by a client of mine, and the agreement was that they would
in the UK,
in England, in South England, in southeast, and my client operated in the Liverpool Street area, but they sold part of the business where there was issues about use of their trade name in southeast England, and there was dispute as to whether or not they are entitled to it. So that is again dispute resolution. Okay. It's a different court. It's not a county court that would deal with it, but it's a different court. And again, we have access to specialist barristers. Okay. So we can be retained in any trademark disputes. So if somebody is if you have registered unique name and you've registered it, but somebody has set up a similar business within your locality or in England and Wales, we can be involved in resolving that if they are not able to resolve it by compromise. And if we thought they had a merit, we would take them to the appropriate courts to resolve that as well.
Thank you, Abdul Hafizi, for giving us information about Freeman Harris Solicitors, who cover a wide range of legal services, from PI, immigration, family, and much more. Their lawyers are bilingual and they are easily accessible on social media. Best of all, they provide free initial advice. For my next week's show, I'll be talking about forced marriage. If you have any questions or comments, please email me on letstalkaboutit@lb24.tv. Until next time, goodbye.